Hi Patterson, how are you?
I'm great, Jeff. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's a bit warm here today. It's 30, low 30s today, so it's the early part of summer for us. It's a bit of a, whoa, that's what it's like.
Send it this way. I was biking into a southerly at about 12 degrees. It's 13 degrees right now here, so quite cool.
Well, the stupid thing is we had that on the last weekend, so it's, good old Melbourne weather. It dances about like, I don't know what it dances like, but so today we want to talk about good health. What is good health? Can you give us a bit of a clue what good health would look like?
Well, according to your doctor, good health is when you don't have a disease.
That's a bit broad.
And come back next year and we'll find something. Say but they don't tell you how to stay out of their office or to not get a disease. That's not their function. And for me, as a chiropractor, we started off with you want to get a practice of booked up Monday through Friday with everybody coming in healthy for their chiropractic adjustments once a month to stay healthy.
Hmm.
So it was always this concept in the back of my head that health was just something you had to participate in, something that and chiropractic, of course, by aligning the spine, the bones, and everything, allows the innate potential of the body to be improved and you have better immunity. And I remember when I was in school, the average chiropractor lived to like 88, and the average medical doctor lived to like 74. So it was like there was like, okay. There was something to it. And we're not talking about radical lifestyle differences here, other than that in that philosophical thing is that you A had to be happy what you're doing, and B that you had to participate. And oddly enough, my brethren, my chiropractic brethren, it's always amenable to walk into another chiropractor's office and ask to be tuned up, not look for a disease, but tuned up.
Yeah.
This is limiting you from being at your potential. So that's the topic of the day. How do we limit you from thinking that that you have to wait for a disease to do something? How do we turn it around and say, what's limiting you to be at your potential so that you have optimal health, to have less uh, days off work with flus and colds and minor infections and gut aches, let alone hangovers, okay, Monday morning thing. What are you doing to yourself that allows you not to be in that great optimal condition? As you know, I just came back from India and we see people up there guys, in the whole state of Ladakh. I didn't see one person overweight.
Hmm.
I didn't see hardly anybody that wasn't smiling. Now, there's no relationship between the two, but they they had within them a reverence for hard work and the right amount of rice and dal and unprocessed food, and they had a lifestyle that was working, and they lived in small communities that took care of each other.
Hmm.
So those are some pretty essential things that we talk about with the pillars of health, close community and faith, a whole foods, plant-based diet, exercise. Well, menial labor is exercise when you work 10, 12 hours a day, piling rocks or walking with a yak herd or doing whatever you're doing. Everybody works, everybody moves. Little old ladies out sweeping the freeway, okay, with little brooms in the middle of traffic. No red, no yellow cones, no orange cones.
High
They
vis jackets.
have his jackets there now. You gotta, you just don't want to hurt people. The idea you don't want to hurt yourself is much higher in the psyche. And I think we have to look at that as saying, what is there about what I do on a daily basis that hurts me, that could hurt me? Well, if you talk about the average person eating for 15 and a half hours a day, that immediately shuts down the immune system. And by shutting down the immune system, it means that overnight you don't get a chance to get rid of all the food, so you can start tearing down your own system that needs repair and revitalization. It doesn't have time. The blood's full, a bunch of fat, bunch of remnants of proteins in there. Everything's going on. So now, when we just say, "Are you eating 12 hours a day or less?" That's good. That's much better.
Which,
You know,
when you work it out, if you're eating breakfast, you start eating at 8. That means you can eat till 8. That's a fair whack of time. We're not talking about stop eating at 4 o'clock. Like, that's a normal day for most people. But they're eating the whole time through that, or they're eating longer past that. Is that what you're saying?
well, the the facts are is that the average person, and the average person means statistically average. There is no average person, actually. It doesn't have an A on them, it's the scarlet A. And I am Peoria, everything happens in Peoria because they're the average. The average person eats 40% of their calories, 40% after dinner
After dinner,
and before they go to bed. So
so
that's meal.
peaking out on chocolate and ice cream and wine and whatever after dinner. Is that the
Yeah,
guts, dare I say it?
the biggies, the crunchies, the
Mm.
the chocolate. Why do you think there's chocolate commercials every night at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock on TV, right?
I don't notice them.
I don't watch TV, but it's like, yeah, they're on there. So my point being is that, so when we just knock that back, we change radically two things. Number one, our caloric intake, and number two, the efficiency of our immune system. Now, there was a study done at University of California, San Diego, where the researcher, she took women with breast cancer, and one group ate their food, their food window to eat was 12 hours a day. And the other group, their food window was 11 hours a day. She didn't want to stress them out too much. Eat whatever you want, but here's the thing: just 11 hours of eating or 12 hours of eating throughout the day. And at the end of the 2-year study, what had happened was that there was like a 35% difference
Well,
in the effect of therapy and the positive effects of eating for 11 hours a day as opposed to 12.
it doesn't sound like much of a change, does it?
It doesn't, but now when we start to look at this and start to interview tens of thousands of people, what we find is there's a sweet spot. And that sweet spot of the most efficient use of our eating window, as opposed to, which means the most efficient stimulation to our immune system, the most efficient use of our calories, the most efficient use of our repair systems, tends to be somewhere about 13 to 14 hours of non-eating. Okay.
So that's still 10 or 11 hours of eating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's 8 o'clock to 7 o'clock, or 8 o'clock till 6 o'clock. So that's
Yeah.
a normal day for most people if you're having, particularly if you're having breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the point. And it's like, so when you get into that zone, what you see is all-cause mortality radically change. People dying of these chronic degenerative diseases that claim 9 out of 10 lives, they're living longer and they're healthier for longer out of the doctor's offices. And they're significantly, I mean, significantly, like a matter of decade longer. And so that research is a pointer to all of us to say that simple thing of just dialing it in is helping our body control the number one thing that's killing most people, which is food poisoning. Too many calories, too long of eating day, inappropriate food with too little fiber, too much processing. So
It makes the diet pretty easy to work out in one sense. We haven't even got down to what you eat, but you've already dramatically improved our odds just by cutting the way we eat, not what we eat.
well, there's a lot of research that shows it doesn't matter what you eat, as long as you don't overeat. You push away from the plate. You know, hara hachibu, as the Japanese say, eat till you're 80% full and then get away from it. You know, it's like that first sip of a cold beer. That's fine. You didn't need three more beers. You just
Yeah.
need the first half of the one. Okay. You'll never have a problem there. You'll have a problem with the three beers every time you get thirsty. So my point being the same thing with food. It's the taking in of enough to satisfy your immediate hunger, if you can call it that. Most of us just work on the clock. It's time to eat. I'm going to show up. But and you push away saying, I like the feeling of not being bloated. I like the feeling of having a flat belly. I like the feeling of I still have energy. I'm not falling into a food coma. Now you're stimulating your immune system. Now you're taking care of inflammation. And if we didn't talk about it before, let's talk about it now. Inflammation is the cause common to all of the chronic degenerative diseases. Doesn't matter if it's cancer, diabetes, heart disease, leaky gut, whatever. It all starts with the inability to control inflammation. Now,
So is that every single disease? Like, apart from, say, a genetic mutation in a child, we're not necessarily talking about children,
no,
but
no,
we're
no.
talking,
The chronic degenerative diseases, and
okay.
those are the ones that we are horrible medically at managing.
Uh-huh.
Kidney failure, heart disease. We only have Band-Aids. We have stents. We have coronary bypass. We have balloon angioplasty. We have all kinds of great technique to save lives immediately in the theater. We have strong medicines to manage these things, and they do extend lives.
Mm.
But what extends lives, if just as long or more, as if you cut off the inflammatory environment. And we do that again, eating window. And now what do we eat? If we're we come back to Mr. Average or Mrs. Average and we go, well, they're eating for 15 and a half hours a day. And now we've cut that down to 12 hours or 14 hours without eating per day. And we go, okay, well, that's radically changes their body's ability to control inflammation, because now it's not having to spend its anti-inflammatory enzymes on chewing up excess debris.
Mm.
All right. And it's that simple. But what happens to the next zone of that is that by allowing your system to function better, you start to eat more appropriately. As you eat, Mr. and Mrs. Average eat less than 15 grams of fiber a day. They eat 40 teaspoons of sugar a day. They have 70% of their calories coming from ultra processed foods. Basically,
Just on that, so 40 teaspoons is like a handful. It's like we're not talking
no, it's a bowl.
a bowl. It's a full bowl, 40 teaspoons.
And it's hidden in our foods. You have a bottle of breakfast yogurt. You have a glass of orange juice from your local supermarket. You have a couple of slices of toast with some jam. And you've got 18, 20 teaspoons right there.
Wow.
Okay, and it's not even noon. Okay.
And on the fiber front, you said we're having an average of 15, but what should we be having?
Well,
What's a rough guide there? Is it
the government guides are
that?
between 35 and 40, 35 and 37 for men and women a little bit less. But it's realistic, if you talk to anthropologists, to think that we were minimally eating 100 grams of fiber for most of the last 150, 200,000 years. There was nothing processed in the environment. It was either, and I love this because there's one tribe in Africa, and I can't remember their name, but there's about 550 of these people still living as they did 20,000 years ago.
Wow.
And the interesting point is that the carnivore movement has held these people up as great examples of who we are and why we should be meat eaters exclusively. Along comes the researcher anthropologist, does his research and he writes a book called Burn. And I haven't read it. I've only seen the synopsis of it, but here is the synopsis. When he checked out what they actually ate, the women supplied the food every day, about 70% potatoes, tubers. They had their little stick. They were digging tubers, kind of looked like a potato type root. And that was the 70% of their 60 to 70% of their calories were always there on a daily basis. And they had about 15% protein and about 20% fat. And that came from the hunters that finally got successful once a week, maybe twice a week, but average about once a week over the year. And so, and it fit, and so they were basically eating a Mediterranean diet in in their African environment as far as it goes. And so, what do we say? Well, when we look at all the long-lived populations around the planet, we say, well, how did they get there? Well, they're about 70, 15, 15, 15 fat, 15 protein, if you want to break it down, but they're basically eating a lot of whole food and not processed food. So the second thing would be if we just cut down on the breads, the cakes, the scones, the crackers, the chips, all of these things that are hidden into our environment, the processed things, sauces out of packages, flavorings that creep in these massive amounts of sugar, salt, and fat into our diet, and they're high calorie. They take away, they don't fill us up because they don't take much room, and our stomachs tell our brain not to eat when they stretch out because we're used to eating like those hunters ate, or those gatherer hunters ate, because they weren't that good at hunters. They ate very carefully, and so we're used. If we eat that way, we're automatically increasing our fiber content, and because whole food is fiber, and it slows down the release of sugar, it drops insulin. It drops that insulin resistance that we get that keeps us putting on weight no matter what we do. We don't know why, but we just had 30 teaspoons of sugar for breakfast and we can't understand, we're only having 500 calories. Why aren't we losing weight? We're having 1,500 calories a day and everything we're eating is telling us to store the energy. So here we have the end of the thing is where when you put the fiber in, it comes with polyphenols, vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, all of these things that your system needs to keep its metabolism, its immunity, its digestive tract healthy. And when you do that, when you keep that healthy and you move up that scale and you realize, oh, now I'm stretching my stomach and I'm actually satiated. I push the plate away because I don't have more room. And that to me is a confounding event because we eat till we're stuffed generally as a population. Okay. We overeat because we're undernourished. That's the reason. So
okay. So because we're eating the wrong food, we're eating more of the bad stuff, but we're still not getting satisfied.
yeah, you can take a Big Mac has close to a full day's worth of calories, and yet it's 65% fat, almost zero fiber.
Zero fiber, not even in the bun.
Yeah, the patties are 65% fat and high saturated fat. They're bred specifically in what we call Franken cows, for that purpose. And so if we stay away from that and we say, well, I'm going to have the black bean burger, it's supposed to, and go, oh, well, oh, the black bean burger has got 7 grams of fiber in it. That's half of what the normal person's getting for a day. And beans have something very special in them too. When we look at all the long-lived populations on the planet, those that have the most amount of beans in their diet just stand up above the rest. I use
secret thing in beans then? Is it just the fiber? Is that enough?
Well, there's what we call an insoluble fiber or an undigestible fiber in beans. And we have a whole colony of bacteria, or we're supposed to have a whole colony of bacteria that helps us take care of undigestible fiber. Now, most everything, even broccoli, will have a little bit of undigestible fiber in it. But beans have like 7, 10 times more, or maybe 100 times more than broccoli of this undigestible fiber, which is about 6 or 7% of, say, a black bean. And it feeds this colony. The reason people fart with beans is that they haven't got the colony to break it down so the beans ferment and they give off their broken starches, and their fermenting process gives you gas. Okay, but let's look at a really interesting study that was done in California. It was done in the States and partially in California. In the Mexican American population, they are the least educated. They have the lowest socioeconomic status, and they're the most obese as a group. And so diabetes, heart disease, cancer, you would say, they're going to be on top of the charts. Well, they have half the heart attack rate of the same age and weight white population.
Ooh.
Oh, that drove the statisticians crazy. And it took them about a number of years to finally figure out that in the United States, 70% of all the beans sold in the entire United States were being bought by the Hispanic population. So that bean burrito, it was, and just as a background on a daily basis, life wasn't life without rice and beans and corn. Rice, beans, and corn. I mean, I love it. I was raised in California, okay? And so that replaced, all of a sudden you get fiber. All of a sudden you get a slowing of the glycemic curve. The glycemic index goes way down. You control inflammation, and inflammation causes heart disease, cancer, diabetes, let's say. So by controlling inflammation with a more fibrous diet, even if it wasn't the best, I remember being in California, walking down the aisles of a supermarket and seeing people pushing a trolley, and on the trolley they'd hang their canned drinks on the sides of it. So they'd have I don't know, 4 cases of canned drinks, and then all the boxes of the food there. And then there'd be the Mexican immigrants pushing their things through, and they'd have 4 or 5 packages of tortillas and a basket full of vegetables. And I'm going to myself, they're gonna inherit the earth. They're gonna inherit the earth. This was 1984, okay? and I was like, because they're sleeping up in the canyon, coming over the borders at nights to make a living, to have a better life, so they can eat terrible food and die early like the rest of us.
The American dream.
But most of them were much smarter than that. They'd work 5 years or so, and they go back and they have a nice house and a big garden, and the family would be good, and they live happily ever after. So
to go back, you've kind of said inflammation's the enemy. Is that accurate? Like it's the food and the timed eating and those sort of things are all about minimizing inflammation so the body can actually do its thing. Is that the simple version?
that's right. And while we talking about food as a very important vector, there are other things that throw inflammation off the rails too. Lack of sleep. high stress, over exercise, under exercise. Okay. Obesity, obesitis, inflammation caused by fat accumulation in the body, has a background inflammatory process going on at all times. Okay. Um, chemical exposures, benzene, hydrocarbons, exhaust fumes, uh, scented candles, toxic things in our environment that we're kind of swimming through on a daily basis unconsciously, but they all make a difference. Where do you, I don't know about you, but where do you feel your best? It's when you're out in the bush, miles from anywhere, and you stop for a second and you just stop. And you look around, and you take a breath, and you can notice that you can breathe, your nose isn't stuffy, your ears aren't humming with background noise, and you go, oh, that's pretty nice. Well, that's who we are. We are people on the planet, but we're disconnected in so many ways because of our urban environment. And so when you want to take control and have better health, you have to take control of the vectors that are the most monumentally obvious. You got to eat well, move well. Exercise is anti-inflammatory. When you exercise for 400, 500, 600 minutes per week, okay, that's an hour a day of just walking. You can walk 30 minutes to work and back, one night to work and 30 minutes back. That's adding a decade to your life probably, because it's lowering inflammation, it's keeping your weight down, it's giving you cardiovascular stimulation, it's letting you be out in nature, getting sunshine and getting wind and rain and all that stuff. But my point being is that that's just one thing. Taking the bottle of yogurt and replacing it with 2 apples or something else that has some, that doesn't have a barcode on it.
So this mirrors nicely. That's where the lifestyle medicine pillars come from. They're all about this holistic approach to minimizing or keeping the inflammation low. Is that accurate?
That's the primary vector, and because the science has been done, we have tens of thousands of studies repeated over and over and over to show the sleep vector, the exercise vector, the stress vector, the social connection vector, all of these things that end up causing us to either act poorly, behave poorly, consume poorly, or move poorly. That compound. So when you want to be as healthy as possible, you want to be the right weight. BMI 22 to 20 is ideal. We're not talking about 30 or 29, which is the average now in most places. In Australia, New Zealand, 29 is the average. That's me with 25 kilos on me, 50 pounds. Okay. And so, and people like me, oh, you skinny. No, I'm in the middle of normal. And so we're not used to seeing it either. And it's not to say we're not fat shaming. It's definitely not what we're doing here. We're just saying there's a reason for fat, and it's not you being a bad person, as we talked about in the section on obesity that we did. You're not the issue. Okay, your environment's the issue. You've just got to smarten up and get some support and make a few better choices and just keep nipping away at it. Nudge yourself in the right directions. Nudge your family in the right direction. Nudge your loved one to get out the door after dinner and take a walk instead of sitting on your butt watching 2 hours of mindless TV. Those are the things that enhance the life that we don't get to enhance in a modern cubicle environment.
Yeah.
So it's not hard at all. When we combine that idea of fasting every day, which is the 12 hours or the 14 hours of not eating, and we break that fast with something called breakfast.
Quite fast.
And uh, our body rewards us. We're clear, our mind is clear. Yeah, we feel good, we're energetic, and we get stuff done. I mean, employers know it. The first half of that day is their productivity time. And you as a specialist in business advising know that they want to extend and extrude that and make make the productivity longer and longer throughout the day. Why do you think they had a coffee break started during the Industrial Revolution? To get people hyped up a little bit more so they wouldn't slump and they could work faster and better. And
Mhm.
they found that mid-afternoon was definitely a time you had to do it too. So the 10 and 4. And now in New Zealand, of course, and Australia too, I always say that the only way the country would ever come to civil war is if they abolished those coffee.
Pretty
Because
close. Yep.
you can go down the street and you can see workers sitting on the side of the road like that, having a cup, and you can set your clock. It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. And you do it in Australia too, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's exactly 10 o'clock. Okay. And you see them moving around. Oh, it's about 10:20. Okay. Yeah, unless they work for the council, it's 10:30. Okay.
Yeah.
So so it's not hard. Um, but I think the two vectors, as Jack LaLanne said, is diet and exercise. And so that's your king and queen of your kingdom. And if you want that kingdom to be as successful as possible and muster its forces correctly, you've got to work at it. They have to have the foresight to say, I want to go there. I want to be here. It doesn't matter who you are or how you live. It just matters what you do with that and on a daily basis. And you can be as humble or as magnanimous as you want to be, but you have to confront your biology on a daily basis because you are topsoil in motion. You are a magnificent collection of feces and fluids and jellies and you walk and you talk.
Mm.
But you will decompose into a little slime pool and be reabsorbed into the planet, and it's a very short window of existence. And yet the window of existence that's now out there with pain and suffering is enormous because of the environmental insults that we're not aware of. So this is what optimal health is about. This is what everybody can do to a large extent. Um, and I think,
Probably to sum up is to go back to that opening point you made that to be well and to be healthy, you actually need to be active about healthy rather than sitting around waiting for it to happen. Because if you're sitting around, you're kind of going into entropy. Whereas if you're active, you can actually be bolstering it, improving it.
well, I'll use you as an example. You're a hyper intelligent kind of guy, and one day you decided to start listening to me and doing some things that I suggested. And you said, well, I don't think I want to wait till I fall off the apple cart. And once you started to get your foot in the water and you found out, hey, this is pretty good. I feel better. I look better. I'm more productive. Uh, I think I'm going to keep it up. Yeah. And so it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that teaching moment, because of your intelligence to say, I don't have to wait till I get the big diagnosis of the 50-cent word that says I've got a real problem and I have to deal with it. Well, there is no dealing with it. Your life will be changed forever when you get that diagnosis. And as mine was, which was a great awakening at 34, right? A great awakening. And it was a blessing to have terminal cancer. Okay. A blessing because it got my butt into gear. Now, the whole methodology of lifestyle medicine isn't to change the medicine, it's to change the behavior.
Before you get to the need for the medicine.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's non-threatening in that way. It's that says, look, this is a behavioral thing, and you have to be aware of your environment. Look at all the little aspects of it. This is why we're doing these podcasts, is to get people aware of the nuances. And maybe that one little thing we said is going to get somebody to look at it and say, oh, it's like one of my patients said today, he says, you're always in my head. I said, I see a bowl of nuts and I go to reach for them and I go, Patterson would ask if they're salted or raw. You know, and so he most of the time acts accordingly, you know.
I haven't told you this, but I take you to the supermarket every time I go, and I about to grab something off the shelf. It's like, would Patterson eat that? No, put it back.
Well, uh, one of the funny parts, a story was when I was in San Diego. I was uh, very successful in practice, very busy, and also that's when I got very ill. But nobody would invite us to dinner. We
What is
had
that?
we were the food police. All right.
Oh,
Okay. It was like they just didn't know how to do that. And so it was like when I got to New Zealand, it was like it's a different thing. We learned to navigate the waters and do just fine. But it was hilarious. It was
yeah,
hilarious.
it's just tricky. Like I have it the same. If someone invites me around for dinner, it's like what are you not eating now?
Yeah. And
And I bring out my 3-page list, and they're like, "Why don't you eat anything?" It's like, mostly I just say, I eat vegetables, and if you got beans, that's a bonus.
yeah. Yeah. And it's like any sort of plant food is fine.
Yeah,
Rice, grains, plants, that's good. You know. And like tonight, I was gonna Gail's out. I've got my buddy, his wife's away, so he's gonna come, we're gonna go out. But hey,
cool.
no, I'm actually gonna cook him dinner.
Ah, even better.
So I have control of the dietary narrative. Okay. So what's so hard about that? Boil up some rice, make some curry, or some dal, or some rice and beans, uh, a nice fresh salad out of the garden. Easy, easy, and cheap. Yeah.
Well, I
So,
started the fasting mimicking diet today, so I'm
oh,
day one. So it'll just be pumpkin, broccoli, whatever the full vegetables are, steamed away, dry roasted,
there
easy.
you go. And you're not hungry. You feel fine. And you go by the mirror. I don't know about you. Do you turn sideways and go, "Oh, yeah, it's no pookie there. I'm feeling good."
Usually shows up the next morning. It's like, oh, the gut's feeling nice and tight this morning.
Yeah. And it's like I know when I can feel my little anterior superior iliac spines, those little bumps on the front just above your hips, when they're higher than the belly. Okay.
It's called a muffin top, I think.
No, 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 no.
I think we should go.
You should go wrong part of anatomy there. But you're an architect, you're not a doctor, so I can forgive.
Yeah, that's it.
No, I think the takeaway message for people is they have the control. They just have to be aware, and that awareness comes through exposure, and this is what we're exposing them to. So hang in there.
It's choosing to be healthy in each of that and lots of little decisions along the way.
Yeah, choosing not to wait till you got to put some grease on the axles so that they're going to fall off the cart. They're just going to burn up and fall off, and it's not going to be pretty.
Hmm.
The chances of walking away from that are very, very rare. So this is what we're all about: prevention, performance, longevity. Eat well, move well, love well, good relationships, and sleep well. It's that simple. Everything in moderation except moderation. Uh, you have to keep a very high caliber of discretion in your environment about who you are and what you do. And it hurts. I mean, my shoulders are aching today because of what I've done to myself over the week. Okay. I put some stress through the frame. And yet I'm okay. My inflammation is going down. It's good.
Well, it was good stress by the sound of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's what it's all about, positive stress. So,
Mm. Okay, well, let's wrap it up there. Great to talk to you, Patterson, and we'll do it again next week.
thank you, Jeff. And you have a good weekend. And thanks for sending the good weather. I'm holding you to that. Bye for now.
Bye.